Okay, well, welcome to the fourth video in the Intervention and Culture Jamming. During this video, I'm going to be talking about several artists and art projects that use intervention in the new public space. And yes, I'm talking about the internet and the possibility of bringing people to a singular space from distant geographic and different time zones. Public space that's created in chat rooms, public space that's created especially in gaming systems and persistent worlds like World of Warcraft or Halo or Counter-Strike. The Naked Gnome race is a cultural sort of artifact that seems to be growing, where groups of users on World of Warcraft will get together to race level 1 characters across the geography of Azeroth. Level 1 characters are obviously pretty vulnerable to most of the world. The Naked Gnome race creates this sort of methodology to explore what would happen if a large enough group, a large enough herd of level 1 characters were to try to move across the world. Let's watch a bit of the video that I have here. Okay, so the Naked Gnome race is a type of intervention or emergent phenomenon where a group of users decide to use the space in a unique way. They create their own game in the space in the persistent world, ignoring the overwhelming narrative from a company like Blizzard Entertainment. They take control of the space and do with it as they want. Another example of this gaming intervention is this artist, Gezira Babeli. Gezira Babeli is an artist who is solely on Second Life, meaning that Gezira Babeli doesn't have entities out in other gaming spheres, nor do we actually know who Gezira is. This is a identity that lives on Second Life and utilizes it to make art as an intervention. One of the coolest things about Jazeera is that she implements both this idea of performance and intervening into space and the functions of what the physics of that world allow her to do. Sometimes known as griefing, she started a series of performances where she called the Grey Goo performances, where she would have something replicate again and again in a public space. Grey Goos borrowed from cyberpunk literature, where it imagines a self-replicating thing without an off button, which actually creates a goo that subsumes the world. Here at an opening for the 13 most beautiful avatars at Ars Virtua Gallery, the Warhol's bananas replicate again and again, filling the space, intervening and creating an impromptu performance at the opening. Velvet Strike is a project by Schleiner, Landry, and Condon that's cataloging new media art. Velvet Strike was an intervention into the game called Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is a first-person shooter network game where you took on the role as a military fighter. You would choose whether to fight for the insurgency or the terrorists, or you would fight for the counter-terrorists. One of the things that Counter-Strike allowed users to do was this idea of leaving a mark on the surface. A user could literally graffiti and leave a message behind for somebody, either bragging about their awesomeness in the game or to leave a marker for somebody. Our team with Velvet Strike takes that idea and co-ops it to create new graffitis that you could then mod the game and upload. And the graffitis that they develop a very critical sense of what's going on in the game. This idea of terrorism versus counterterrorism, the simplified two-sided us versus them, the idea of, military violence being so realistically portrayed. Here's an example of one of the graffitis, this heart-type structure in the silhouette of somebody holding some sort of assault weapon. Throughout the game, or the intervention here called Velvet Strike, many graffitis were submitted. And not only did the team give you the tools to develop and upload your own, but they also sponsored many. So you could send in your graffiti and they would transform it as a modification for the game. Of course, because of the association of the game with terrorism, and especially what had happened in the September 11th attacks, and then the invasions into several of the Middle East countries, lots of messages related to war, invasion, Iraq emerge. Here are 4 examples of things that you could spray onto the wall. And also then there was some really interesting stuff happening here where some of our protesters, some of our critical thinkers were also starting to insert like homoerotic imagery, which is seen as a negative thing by most of the gaming industry. The idea of the terrorist and the soldier sharing an embrace or maybe even a kiss created some very charged spaces in the game. Slash Hug is a project by a group who are performance groups on several online game platforms. They call themselves Third Faction. Slash Hug was an the sort of speculative project about developing a Red Cross for World of Warcraft. Noting that the narrative of World of Warcraft has the violence extending many thousand years, the third faction group members put together another entity to insert into Warcraft called /Hug. And they're an aid organization to offer help to anybody, regardless of the side or faction that they're on. From this emerge, as you can see in the installation, training videos and propaganda like recruitment posters, pamphlets, that would be seen in an organization like the Red Cross to ask and critically look at what kind of structures are available. Excuse me, editor, please take it back to available. What kind of structures are available, and what kind of organizations can you involve yourself in a game like World of Warcraft? One of the aspects that is very interesting here is shown, one of the recruitment posters, is this idea of the training. Now, it's one thing to espouse and make the structures of an organization, but after watching a training video, /Hug actually had aid stations where people could watch the training video and then immediately volunteer as a /Hug volunteer out there, giving aid to those in need, conducting missions in the name of /Hug. Joseph Delap's another artist who's worked pretty extensively in games. His work called Dead in Iraq, these images are between 2006 and 2009, but I believe he's still working on this project, took form in an online game that's a free, massively multiplayer online role-playing game offered by the U.S. Army. America's Army, the game, is a role-playing game where you play with a group of people through the online chat and the voice over IP technologies. It's also a first-person shooter, very much like Counter-Strike. Interestingly enough, the opposite team, the team you're playing against, and sees you as an enemy. So through the lens of the game, you are portrayed as the terrorist, and through the lens of the game, they are portrayed as the terrorist to you. Interesting questions already there are asked about identity. Joe Delap intervenes in here by going into the game, logging on, and using the chat space, the function of the chat, to list off the dead who, the soldiers who have died. So very simply, just using the chat to read off the names, as is we do at a symbolic ceremony, a funeral ceremony where lots of people have died. In this one, we can see he types out Cedric Lamont Lennon, 32, Army, and then June 24th, 2003. Reading their name, their age at death, what service they're at, and then the day of their death. This caused quite a bit of controversy in the game environment, where the game players don't really know exactly how to confront this. He brings the training that they're doing through the simulation of the game to real focus by naming the members of the military who have been killed in action. Here we can see another screen where Joe Delap's avatars actually died, but he continues to use the chat to read off the names. John Eli Brown, 21, Army, April 14, 2003. Joseph Acevedo, 46, Navy, April 13, 2003. DLAP's commitment is to continue to read off the names of the military who have been killed in action until we leave Iraq. Okay, so there's the end of our presentations. Looking at people who used intervention as an artistic strategy. This idea of intervention and culture jamming is a very rich area that communicates directly to the public. We get away from the museum and gallery and actually get out into the general public of the world. Thank you very much for letting me present this material to you.